A Timaru company has joined the battle against wilding pines and other noxious weeds blotting New Zealand's landscape, threatening conservation areas and farmland. And they're doing it with drones. Let's join Mark Leishman on a hillside in South Canterbury.
It is classic onomatopoeia, the droning sound of a drone in flight, aka a UAV or unmanned aerial vehicle. The word, of course, comes from the male honeybee, which doesn't sting and has the reputation of being a bit of a slacker around the hive. But the modern-day drone has a definite sting and is far from slack. South Canterbury company SPS Automation has joined the fight against invasive plants that have been making a mess of our beautiful countryside for years. Gorse, pampas grass and especially wilding pines. If it's a noxious weed, they're going after it with drones.
Oh, you'll hear it.
So stand by for action.
Turn the generator on.
I'm here at Blue Cliff Station near St Andrews in South Canterbury, and today's noxious weed focus is gorse. So as you can hear, just turning the generator on, it's making a heck of a racket. And very shortly, Hayden's about to start the rotors.
Just waiting for the temperature to come up to the right temperature before we can take off. It's just part of the protection mechanisms that are on it. So once it hits 35, it's now gone green, so I can fly.
Right.
So I'm now arming the drone.
Within seconds, the drone, which weighs 50 kilograms fully laden, lifts off and is propelled by its 4 rotors and a 120cc 2-stroke engine. Reaching a height of around 400 metres, it soars into the distance with its flashing navigation lights, the only visible sign. It's time to see how these drones work, how you fly them, and what it takes to be a drone pilot.
I am Hayden Jorgensen and I am the pilot for Aeronavics, SPS Automation. They taught me to fly drones and I taught them what gorse looks like, and here we are now.
Hayden Jorgensen was a dairy farmer for 30 seasons and has been the company drone pilot for just over a year. How do you become qualified to be a drone pilot?
You do courses and stuff, but yeah, basically you have to, your thumbs and your hands get very used to, like PlayStation gets very used to like small movements on the sticks, and basically keep that drone in the air and don't hit things with the drone is the best. When they first said to me, are you going to be spraying, some of the stuff you can see up the high hills here and where they had marked where there's gorse on the map, and I thought, how am I ever going to get confident enough, capable enough to do that? And it was only a couple of months later I was spraying those gorse. You're constantly thinking about this thing's over 50 kilos. If it falls out of the sky, it can do a lot of damage to yourself or to other people, but also it's worth a lot of money. So if I push it into a cliff face or into a hillside, it's not an ideal scenario.
Right. So let's open up the truck and see what's inside. So we're in the back of the old Hilux here, and all is revealed. And tell us about this machine.
So this is the main body of the drone here. We've got the booms all stacked up.
The rotors on the end of those?
Yeah, with the rotors, the blades are underneath there at the moment. And we've got our 2-stroke petrol and our chemical containers down the side of the ute that way.
Right.
So basically I hit as many bushes as I can until the spray runs out. I fly it back and refill it, send it out again. The controller has all the information on the screen for you. So,
right. And you know what you're looking at to zap?
Part of the reason that I got the job, because I knew what a weed looked like, what weeds were what. So I didn't know how to fly a drone at the time, but they said, we can teach you that, but we can't teach you to identify weeds.
Right. We're here at Blue Cliffs and we're looking at spraying some gorse at the moment. Yep. Well, we've done our safety briefing, so I guess is it time to kick her in the guts?
Yeah, pretty much. I've just checked over everything to make sure it's all properly attached.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, we're ready to go pretty much, eh? SPS Automation grew out of a Rowland-based drone company called Aeronavics, run by Linda Bulk and Rob Brower. It was taken over by South Canterbury agritech businessman John and his brother William Ralston.
We moved the company down to Timaru and then it's just grown from there. But the other thing that we did was we set up SPS Automation. So aeronautics is now done in Timor, and we set up SPS Automation, which is really designed to add the artificial intelligence, the robotics side to drones. And that's now set up in Christchurch. There's about a dozen people up there developing all the algorithms for the drones to fly, all the safety systems, how drones recognise wilding pines, working out flight plans and all that sort of thing.
So it was off to the heart of Christchurch to meet the R&D team. Sadly, unlike the Jetsons, it was by car. Drone taxis are still a way off, but it did get my imagination going.
G'day, I'm Scott Spooner and I'm the CEO and Chief Technology Officer here for SPS Automation. We sort of saw a hole in the industry. Agricultural drones coming in from overseas are primarily focused around doing broadacre spraying. So a drone in a paddock spraying crops. But we look at the countryside and we sort of see a lot of invasive plants tackling our hillsides and really making a mess of our beautiful country. So we wanted to look at what we could do with drone technology and build something tailored for New Zealand to control some of these invasive plants. Wilding pines being a big one, gorse, macella, whatever it is, we try to build a machine that can fly into these remote locations.
I am Rowland Sommer and I am the production manager. You're never standing still. You're never standing still. There are always improvements. This is version 1. There will be a version 2 on the drawing board. There's the upgraded heavier lift drone that we're developing as well. So it's not an industry where you can stand still.
Rowland Sommer thinks New Zealand is perfectly placed to become a world leader in using drones to eradicate noxious weeds.
This is what New Zealand does well, something that's a niche within a niche, and I think it was Sir Paul Callaghan, 2011, talked about New Zealand being good at weird stuff, which he described as a niche within a niche, and we are a niche of agricultural spray drones and heavy lift drones that's within a niche of autonomous aircraft.
For CEO Scott Spooner, one of the key projects for his drone company is nailing those wilding pines, whose spread is accelerating faster than current funding can match.
We run LiDAR systems, all sorts of data systems that are all processed on board the aircraft that allow the aircraft to actually make decisions itself in the field. And that information is fed back to the pilots who are really just monitoring the drones in operation. It's not really Top Gun anymore, unfortunately, which, I mean, that's all what we wanted to do when we got into drones, but really now it's you press the go button and you monitor the aircraft looking for any changes in the air risk, which might be a helicopter coming into the site, or the ground risk. Are there people? Is where you're operating the risk profile change? So air risk, ground risk, or if the aircraft has deviated from its predetermined flight plan. Detecting a person in a ghillie suit versus a pine tree is an interesting dilemma, but the reality is that the sensors on board are very, very accurate. And one of the things we like to do is run people detectors while the aircraft is running, because you want to ensure that the aircraft is not overflying anybody on the ground, even if there are workers in the area, maybe on farms or stuff.
So my name's Jono. I am one of the production technicians down here. My main goal is basically build the drones. I do all the cable making and put all the parts together. I'm the assembler.
So at the moment I'm watching you here and you've got a whole bunch of red strands of cable and they're all being clipped away and they will all become part of a drone some stage.
They will. So I've got all the cable here and I'm stripping off the ends so I can put all of the crimps and headers on. I'm just making up one of the main power cables for the drone. That will go into one of the next 6 drones that we're sitting here currently building away. Once they're all built and up and going, they've got to have 2 hours of flight time put on them before we can ship them out to our customers. So we'll get to have a go at flying them around, doing the testing and all the flights.
Where are you originally from?
So originally from up in Hamilton. moved around a while, and then ended up over in Australia for 7 years, working on robotic industries over there. And then moved back here to be with my family, and now I'm working down here in Timaru, building the drones.
Fancy coming to Timaru, amazed at what you've found here?
Oh, I can't believe what I've found here. The lifestyle's great. It's an awesome area to be in. Everything's so close, and it's just a nice little town that has everything it needs. Fell in love with it and haven't left yet. Been here 3 years now.
Good on you. Oh, keep snipping away.
I'll get them built.
Back in the field at Blue Cliffs, and another sortie to deal to gorse.
A bit more go-go juice.
Gas her up with the old two-stroke petrol. And off it goes.
So I'm just flying over top of this patch here. I'm just going to switch down to the bottom camera just so I can see what I'm actually looking at with the bottom camera.
And so what we're looking at here is the screen, which has all the data on it, how much fuel is left, how much spray you've got.
So those are 2 gorse bushes we're coming up on now.
Right.
They've just slipped underneath me, so I should switch to bottom camera, and there it is on the bottom camera.
Oh, there it is, look at that. And it's being buffeted a wee bit by the draft of the rotors.
Yeah,
is that a good thing, the downdraft?
Yeah, it actually helps the chemical to cling to the plant.
Sort of opens it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is spray going down onto that. You see it's pinking up.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes. It's going a pink colour.
As you can see, that's covered that plant quite nicely.
Yeah.
Then I just
flick to the forward
flick
camera
around
and go and look for another one.
Yeah, if I'm not being distracted at the time, I usually take notice of where the next plant was in relation to me, and
yes.
I can.
If you don't have people with microphones distracting you, you mean?
Yeah.
You can see the flashing lights from the navigation lights.
But as you can see, that looks like I'm about to stack into the hill if you're looking line of sight with your eye.
Yeah.
But then you look at the cameras and you can see you've actually got a lot of good room.
So on a private property like this, you still have to have the flight plan and.
You need a spray plan and a flight plan, because if you spray something and you get chemical drift and things like that, and the neighbour's grapevines die, or just for instance, something goes wrong, somebody's going to be coming to find out who sprayed what and what was done correctly or incorrectly. So we've got to fly under. Yeah, there's a fair bit of aviation law and agricultural chemical application law that needs to be flown under to do the job correctly.
For pilot Hayden, when he started out on a dairy farm all those years ago, he wouldn't in his wildest dreams have envisaged a career as a drone pilot. But for him, it feels like some sort of destiny.
I feel pretty lucky to have gotten now where I am, because it's just like you say, there's so many uses for them, and there's so many different options that are going to be available in the future to use them for. So it is an exciting industry to be in.
Yeah.
So,
And I suppose you feel, as you say, for the environment as well, you're getting rid of noxious weeds, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. You're doing the job that needs done. Otherwise, what do we do with the wilding pines? So there's not a lot of options that are less labour intensive, that don't require heaps of people to be out poisoning them, and you can get a lot more done like this.
But perhaps this latest aviation business was written in the stars, because Timaru and South Canterbury have a lengthy legacy in flight innovation. The locals are convinced aviator Richard Pearce flew before the Wright brothers. The local airport is named after him. And Harry Wigley, he pioneered aerial top dressing and landing on glaciers before founding Mount Cook Airlines. And here we've got John and William Ralston.
Well, I wouldn't quite put us in that category, but now that you mention it, Richard Pearce and then Harry Wigley, two icons of South Canterbury history, and we obviously have a bit of a tradition here in terms of flying. Maybe this is
on the levels
next,
too, really, isn't it?
And on the levels, and so maybe this is the next iteration. We grew up in South Canterbury, and this is home. And when people ask us why we set up companies in Timaru, the answer is why not.
Wilding pines overwhelm native tussock grasslands, alpine plants and coastal ecosystems. Kererū lose habitat as their food sources disappear. And these invaders are heavy water users, impacting catchment flows and surface water availability. The core purpose of SPS Automation is nailing those wilding pines, whose spread is accelerating faster than current funding can match.
We want to kind of reduce the human workload in the dangerous areas.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go ahead and say we're going to solve all the wilding pine problem with drones, because there is enough for ground crews, helicopters and drones. But we have a particular place where we can actually target a lot of really complicated areas very, very effectively. And as we move into swarm automation, where
Which
you've
means
got
more than one.
Yeah, so 10 might be operating in in a swarm.
Yeah.
Covering larger areas with the same machines.
Yeah.
Automatic docking, so they're refueling, getting more chemical by themselves, so the machines are just running 24 hours a day and trying to clear up as much of this as possible. We're very passionate about reducing that invasive footprint, as well as the chemical footprint, the amount of chemical that goes into the environment. So precision chemical application instead of just hosing it on.
William Ralston says the future is fascinating. 10 years ago, it couldn't be done, but now with 3D printing and carbon fibre, AI, anything is possible. He's looking at ways to make rural living easier, suggesting delivery drones could replace rural mail as it becomes less viable, delivering goods to the farm gate and saving a road trip into town and back.
New Zealand we're good at farming, but we're also good at making stuff. And you see that with Rocket Lab, and you see that with the America's Cup. We're very good in terms of materials. There are people who are working for SPS Automation who actually have done work for Rocket Lab or have supplied to Rocket Lab. We've had people who have come through and done interns with us who have gone on to work on the nuclear fusion project in Wellington. So these things are all just are starting up. They're very exciting, and as I say, New Zealand is very innovative in this sort of space.
Well, we missed the rain by just seconds, so thank goodness for that. It's pouring down now, so I think time for a cup of tea. What do you reckon?
That sounds like a very good idea.
That story produced by Mark Leishman. And you can see photos and video on the country page of the RNZ app and website, rnz.co.nz.